This podcast is fiction. AI and creativity. Sharon. I remember being at my mother's real estate office one day and hearing one of the women overwhelmed with rambunctious kids, neighborhood pressures, and take-home work say, "I need a wife." It seems pretty clear that in American society, especially, a wife is exponentially influential in the fulfillment of a dream or the long-term fulfillment and flourishing of a career, which, if it turns out that you are a heterosexual woman, can make things a little bit tricky. This is why I was open to the Elary2000. When I looked up from 19 years in a finance job that still had me grinding away after all that time, a marriage that was very settled in and extremely quiet, and a son who was so suspicious of everything I said after years of being attached to my forearm and saying, "But Mom, I need you." I saw evidence that even astronomically successful women required a wife in order to get there. Did all of these women who either platonically or professionally bolstered the entire careers and livelihoods of other women in a singular and dedicated way for either years or decades get that ring, the day, or the dress and the whole thing, that big official title in society? No, but the duties and responsibilities were there. Though they would get a status bump, but usually in another way, through work, the business, or raises within the household. Look to their left or their right or just behind or even behind the front doors of astronomically successful women, and it won't take you long to see who that trustworthy confidant is that brings light and life into their dreams or their career. The one who holds the mess of them so they can then relax or stand up straight and offer the collected, calm, sociable, and fueled them out into the world. And what's even more common is that a person without a wife who sets out to live a big dream, especially if that dream includes thriving in the quote-unquote professional or artistic world, and then also thriving as a parent and long-term partner, will have 3 to 6 people or services filling that role, and that number is conservative. 3 to 6 people or services or more, usually more, according to all those stats out there, who still somehow can't manage to do it and still somehow can't get it right. The Ellery was supposed to advise, listen, coordinate the household, and make sure I stay connected with my most important relationships. But then my mother-in-law said, "That thing is not giving you my messages. William should have let you get a male one so that it would give you my messages. It doesn't care whether you are male or female, Mom. It cares about your tone of voice in these messages. For God's sakes, Mom." And my son started to interrogate Ellery about something called the game and undermining the confidence of even the head cheerleader so much that it would throw her off balance. And you don't even want to know what his little friends were trying to get him to ask Ellery about. This from the kid who used to get a thrill from asking for 2 chemistry sets instead of 1 at Christmas so he could combine them and see how to make popcorn pop without a microwave or a stove or anything. But then Ellery couldn't help me the weekend before Labor Day weekend with groceries, errands, or dropping off returns at the mall kiosk because she was helping William organize a business dinner and settlers game for some of his biggest demolition clients. That is the fight over Ellery. Why not get 2? Look, this Ellery, she is not just an AI agent. She is several AI agents and a physical laborer with cooking, cleaning, and first aid skills. In other words, she's expensive. Anyway, we were fighting, and I was like, well, why are we making these payments if she's not helping? And we were afraid of having a person take that much responsibility in our household, which when it came down to it over time would be even more expensive anyway, and we agreed we were just going to send her back. And we'll just go back to having a person do what they can for us on a few days of the week, but it wasn't enough. I knew it wasn't going to be enough. Let me just say, I know there are women for whom this whole subject is frustrating because their husband is the one who plays this role, works outside the home in some capacity, manages and takes care of the household, is the primary caretaker for the kids, and encourages and bolsters the business or the career or the dream she has that feeds the family, and that in a few cases, more than a few, finding the right partner to love them in this way and who was fulfilled by that role wasn't easy for these women, but they did find them, and they have their own stories and things to say about it. But this was not my personal experience, and it is not the experience of most women that I know either. Even some of these women who made businesses that allowed their husbands to retire from their jobs, eventually the husband would want to express his ambitions through a lead or central role in the company, and the social and neighborhood pressures and all that time he'd be spending with the moms in the neighborhood would eventually make things tricky. But look, I want you to know that I already know that there's all sorts of arrangements, but the reality is I'm dealing with this. I'm still dealing with this and finding my way through it, and so is my loving but actually kind of conservative husband. Maybe I've been even more conservative than I know how to admit. In some cultures, they have being a mom and taking care of household chores and duties as completely separate things. Like, being a mom is about the kid and not also always automatically about the logistics of the house schedule, cleaning, making or getting the food, or coordinating and organizing all the events and the relatives. But the reality is I have to make my way in this life that I'm in. So William and I had a talk. After William making the point that anything you let AI take over, you'll eventually forget how to do and be dependent on them for. He used the words dumb and lazy. These things are just going to make us dumb and lazy. I asked if it made him dumb and lazy that I took care of the household and did the budgeting and worked and organized all our son's signups and made sure to coordinate the attending of events and the bulk of the healthcare and the visits of our parents and the making sure this person isn't in a room too long with this other person, so that everyone can get out of this freaking Easter or Christmas or July 4th holiday alive. He said, that's us depending on each other, not them. And I said, well, the things I need help with in order to paint more and in order to finally finish this photography book that it seems like is the only thing I want to do, and that the dream of doing is the only thing keeping me from turning a table over at work or something, are the things you don't want to do. He stood up and took me by the shoulders because apparently I was shaking. Rage, fear, frustration, resentment, who knows? I'm pretty sure there was yelling. There were definitely some tears, and I kind of blacked out for a few minutes, honestly. I just remember the sound of my own voice reverberating in the silence, and William kind of looking at me like, oh shit, like, you never said this whole painting thing and this photography thing was really that important. And then he sat down on the edge of the bed, looked up at me and said, tell me again what it is you need help with. And he stepped up, definitely stepped up for a few months, 3 months and about a week, actually 3 months and a week exactly after the first game of my now unrecognizable kid who hides his science projects in the back of a garage like a secret, in the back of our garage like a secret, and suddenly wanted to try out for basketball. After that, when we got home and William and I were having some quiet time together and we were talking about the end of the year coming up, I love you, you're the most important thing in my life, he said. But some of these things, the reality of it is I'm just not awesome at them. I can't do them and handle all of my responsibilities at work. I don't know how you could, but I can't. We need to figure out a way to do this that lets you have this other time that you're saying you need to have, and without the household falling apart. There's probably some guy that would be good at these kinds of things, but it just isn't me. And so the Elary2000 was back. Merry Christmas to me. And this time, the Elary2000 is dedicated solely to me and everything I need to make it possible to, not even be one of these women who have been labeled as astronomically successful, both by me and practically all of society, but really just in order to get to have the time to be a little more of the person I've always wanted to be, that time I need just in order to get to be a little more me. Copyright October 7th, 2025, Nika Patrice, all rights reserved.